Hello, I'm Riley, David's other son. My father arrived at Hikertown at mile 517 just after noon. The two workers, Martin and Bill, were busying themselves around the property. He spoke to John, the only other person staying at Hikertown. John had a limp, and my dad got his story. He arrived the day before. He was part of a trail family called the Codgers. The Codgers were a group of older hikers who hadn't skipped any section of the trail so far and had documented their whole trip on YouTube. As a result, they had a pretty good following. John had overdone it coming down from Wrightwood and was afraid he had a stress fracture. Fortunately, he was able to find a trail angel to drive him from Acton to Hikertown so he could get a chance to see a doctor before the rest of the Codgers arrived. My dad found Marta and paid her $25, and that got him a shed to sleep in, access to the restroom. He could use the charging port to the gazebo, and also something she called laundry mexicali. She put a blanket on the mattress in the shed so my dad's sleeping bag wouldn't dirty up the mattress. He went to find Bill because he was in charge of the showers. While looking, my dad ran into the wildflower fans from earlier in the day. One of them had seen it before and was showing the rest. When asked what he thought of Hikertown, one of their numbers said it was interesting. My dad found Bill and paid him $5 for a towel and access to the shower. The shower was interesting. A piece of plywood was used to close up one side of the gap between two sheds. The other side was sort of closed off by a kind of bathroom shoveling unit and a sheet that served as a door. Rubber mats were stapled to the walls of the shed to sort of protect them from the shower's water. Inside this space was a tankless water heater and a propane tank. An extension cord, propane tank hose, and a garden hose ran to the water heater. The only thing running from the water heater was a shower head. The floor of the quote shower unquote was covered with drainage mats. My dad did not take advantage of the laundry mexicali. It appeared to be a hand-crank mechanical contraption. Although he happily paid for the shed and shower again, the service Marta provided seemed like a better deal than Bill's. While my dad was settling in and cleaning up, John went off to his doctor's appointment, so my dad was alone in Hikertown. Nenach Market, just 6 miles away, will drive you to and from, so my dad took advantage of the service, although the driver was hesitant to pick him up. Normally more come and go at a time. At the market, he had lunch, a delicious dish simply called the Filipino breakfast. He also ordered an adobe burrito to go that he figured he'd have for dinner. While he was waiting for his food, he made friends with a couple of Shih Tzus that were hanging out in the market's patio. While he was gone, two SOBO hikers, one NOBO, and John arrived at the Hikertown. So despite no planning on it, he went back to the market for dinner. He shared the van ride with John, Bruno, and Carolyn. He found out that John's leg was going to be okay after a few days of medicine and rest. Carolyn was heading SOBO after flipping at Tehachapi, and Bruno was NOBO like my dad. He skipped from mile 151 at Paradise Valley Cafe to mile 444 in Action. They were both from Brooklyn. After dinner, they all hang out at the gazebo while their devices charge. It got dark and cold, so everyone headed off to their sheds. Everyone was planning on sleeping in and having breakfast back at the market, but my dad wanted to get started early. It's really easy to get going early when you can stand in a warm room. He ate his to-go burrito from the day before as he walked away from the comforts of Hikertown. Not long after leaving, he hooked up to the California aqueduct. At first, the water of the aqueduct was exposed. Then it was an above-ground pipe. Finally, it was covered by cement slabs, so it became quite the thoroughfare. Far Out warns you not to camp on the aqueduct because it's used as a desert road, but every so often there are raised slabs. The slabs are probably used to access the aqueduct's water. My dad passed a group that slept on one of these slabs, which would be safe. The couple times he passed historic tracks trapped in the cement of the aqueducts. While walking the aqueduct, he passed at an active gun club. And later he could see the California Poppy Reserve off in the distance. Before leaving the aqueduct, he'd been walking among windmills. These would dominate the scenery for days. At 1 p.m., he had crossed 17 miles to the first natural water source after a Hikertown. Cottonwood Creek has a little dam for flood control. It seems the unusually high water brought out the tourists. My dad camped at the next water source. Tyler House Canyon was very nice. Another couple who were headed south were already camped there. Some of my dad's food was left over from the previous backpacking trips. As a result, he came across a little Ziploc with instant coffee mix in it. So the next day he drank coffee with breakfast. The best coffee is surprise coffee. As he approached the highest elevation before Tehachapi, he saw the first snow in quite a while. Around midday, my dad came to a campsite at mile 549. A local, Daniel, was there. He was supplying the spot with water and providing hikers with fresh fruit and pastries. My dad and Daniel sat in the chairs under umbrellas that he had provided. Daniel told him all about the living in the area and provided trail magic for 20 years. After leaving Daniel, my dad ran into multiple groups of hikers going southbound. Although he spoke to each group, he encouraged them to hustle to the trail magic ahead. During this time, he had a second brush with trail fame. He ran into Wheels. My dad followed her journey on the Appalachian Trail 2 years earlier on the Trek's YouTube channel. She hiked to mile 151 like many others, and then jumped and flipped to the SOBing with the hope the snow would be better after a few weeks. I'll link to the Trek and Codra's YouTube channels in the description. Here are a few highlights as they approach Tehachapi. A mini Grand Canyon blocking the trail due to erosion, angry trespassing signs, and a break to air out his feet, and lastly pet rock art. He was so happy when he could finally see Willing Springs Road, but from there he still had over a mile before he'd even start the road walk. At the trailhead, there was a picnic table with hiker box and water. Daniel told him he should go to Conan's Bakery for a sandwich, so he started the 9-mile road walk there. He knew he wouldn't have to walk the whole way. Daniel said that if no one picked my dad up by the time he went home, Daniel would. While he walked, he passed a dog kennel with a great name. Sure enough, after a few miles, a local couple picked him up and dropped him off at the bakery, where he got a sandwich on some awesome bread. He had a couple of hours to kill before my grandparents could pick him up, so he followed Daniel's suggestion. My dad walked down to TK's Pizza because they were supposed to have a great selection of beers. On the way, my dad passed a really cool military service memorial. Snake count was 1, and there's still just to go for snake from the other day. And then trail stops checklist were Willow Springs Road and Tehachapi.